Class, class, class. You know, I was kind of looking forward to Class. Sure, it sort of was against what I think the vibe of Doctor Who is, because a sort of sexy teen show doesn't really seem like it fits in the stratosphere of Doctor Who. But I'm kind of a sucker for teen shows, and it wasn't written by Stephen Moffat, so I thought maybe there'd be something to it, and something enjoyable. If you could have sort of disconnected it from Doctor Who, enjoyed it in its own right, there might be something there. Like, in a few words, kind of my thought of, and this is just episode 1, I've only seen the first episode, would be unnatural and sort of jumbled and frantic. The pace seemed to be all over the place. It was a weird mess. All the dialogue was very stilted. The pace particular problem, just one thing happened, kind of one after another, kind of frantic, everything's coming at you at once and nothing feels right. There's no sort of flow to it. There's just a barrage of here's this character, and before we even know anything about that, here's another character, here's this character, and then here's a bit of setup, just endless stream of exposition and things happening. So it made it very hard to lock on to anything in terms of sort of forming a relationship with the show. Like, I didn't feel a connection to any of these characters. I didn't feel like they were characters, because it sort of wasn't textured and nuanced enough to feel engaging. It's actually sort of really amusing that all through the hype of this, everyone's been invoking Buffy all over the place. It's the British Buffy. New Class trailer brings Buffy to the mix. Oh, it's Buffy, Buffy, Buffy. The thing that Buffy's most known for is like the sort of flow and rhythm and naturalness of the dialogue that really, you know, it's so sparky, and it really brings the characters to life. And that's what's like so broken in Class. The dialogue is horrible. It's so unnatural. You don't know why anyone's saying the things that they're saying, or why they're saying them to these people. Everyone sort of speaks in announcements. There's a particularly amazing bit where one of the characters, the girl, and she's walking on her own down the street, and she just stops stock still in the middle of the street and starts like talking to herself and just monologuing her inner thoughts, like, oh, why should I go to prom? What? And that's what I mean by unnatural. It was just very strange. It's the characters you come for, really. So let's talk about that. What we're looking for is something that we can latch onto in the characters, and something we can connect with, and they've got to feel like people. These kids in Class do not feel like people. None of them make sense, really. I can't remember any of their names. I'm sorry. But the cool guy, what's his deal? He's sort of a school bully, and then he loudly announces, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing talking to you geeks. And that was another great line. But then he has these sort of regular Skype calls with the younger sort of nerds in the school, which doesn't really fit with the character. And oh, your defenders will be leaping, and you say Phoenix. That's the depth. That's the contradiction. But it's really not fleshed out enough to make it feel, I was about to say natural again, I've said it so many times. It just didn't come together. It just felt like a mistake rather than a sort of natural contradiction. Yeah, and it might have been nice to sort of expand why those two were friends, or maybe show them start to be friends as a sort of entry point to us, because it's all about how you reveal these things, not in terms of it being a twist, but just sort of how you guide the viewer into this world, and to just set up, like, here is a bully, next scene he's chatting with this, you know, the geeky character. There was no sort of leading us into the complexities this character, and maybe he feels under pressure to behave that way at school, but then he actually, you know, they connect on a lot of stuff outside, so they can be friends. None of that was in the... That's just me sort of inferring shit. It didn't invite us to get to know these people, and it didn't really explain who they are in a satisfactory way, was the problem. And there are all these sort of lazy attempts at character arcs that don't really work. The cool guy, again, the sort of bully character, his big moment is he tries to fight the alien, but before he dispatches them, he's like, I can't remember the line, but it made me laugh out loud because he's like, "You don't control me!" It's so clumsy because it's set up that he perhaps feels sort of control and under pressure from his father, and so apparently that's that coming out as he's dispatching with the alien. But that's so bad. No one announces like the next notch in their character arc. Show don't tell, Patrick Ness. Yeah, the show should have kind of guided us into that state of mind where the whole episode, that character could have been pressures just mounting on him, things spiraling out of control, and then, you know, he sees his moment, there's the alien, and he just like goes for it. And he doesn't say anything, but this is his moment where he can lash out and release, and he would just go to town on this alien, and wouldn't need to say like, "You don't control me." That would be an example of the plot sort of guiding us through this development, rather than this sort of tacked on bit of dialogue. The girl who's just too nice. Oh, what a character. Yeah, there's another attempt to back up her character in the finale, where she's told to get all the kids out of prom. The aliens are here. So she runs in and she's shouting. Like, the music's playing, it's a huge prom, and she's shouting at people, like, "Get out, ladies here!" No one can hear her because the music is loud. Or is it? Is it because the music is loud? Or is it because this is a clever metaphor for the fact that she feels unlistened to and ignored? Oh, how clever. She takes to the stage. You know what your problem is, everyone? Instagram. We've used this moment where she can't get people out as a metaphor for her character, and then we've used it as a metaphor for her learning to be empowered, I guess. But that comes off as the character is using a life or death situation as a soapbox to have a little bit of a bitch at the rest of the school, which immediately makes her like very unlikable, and you sort of you lose that connection. No one would really do that if you would just what? Even more of an idiot, she decides a speech about Instagram is gonna get them out the school. Pull the fucking fire alarm! How is that not an option? Does Coal Hill School not have fire alarms? That's not up to code. She's there shouting at people and doing her, you know, empowerment speech when she should be pulling the fire alarm. I think part of the distancing thing that really kept me at arm's length with the show was it couldn't decide how stylized it wanted to be. Sometimes it wants to be sort of dark and gritty and quite urban. Sometimes it just goes full sort of Edgar Wrightian stylization. A particular moment I'm thinking of is when the alien lad, new superhero, alien lad is explaining to Nice Girl his backstory, his origin. And they keep doing all these sort of meta jokes and are just sort of disorientating and pull you out of the story. She imagines them all as being sort of posh school kids and wearing blazers and stuff, because that's like how she would grasp the concept of hierarchy, apparently. I know Patrick Ness is a prose writer, and I can see that working much better written down in prose, because it's jokes about how you're imagining a story being told. So that would work much better in written form, where you're literally trying to imagine the story along with this girl as you're reading it. Doesn't work at all on film in visuals. It just is very confusing and hard to follow along with. And I think even the director found that, because you've got that, so that's a fake flashback, if you will. That's this girl's perception of events. Later we see a genuine flashback, and it's still got the stylization of her perception. And then we have the icing on the cake. The piece de resistance. A cameo from Doctor Who himself. Peter Capaldi looks very excited to be there. You can almost see him sort of glancing off, sort of mouthing like, can I go here? He just runs through all his lines like, oh yes, hello, I'm the Doctor, just sort of really bored. Doesn't really look like he wants to be there. Maybe that's the impression they want to give off from the Doctor. But it's just such a bland cameo. His role in this is basically to come in and fix everything. Save the day. That's a fantastic way to sort of validate your spin-off. Again, it takes away from the characters. Like, I don't feel like it was a win for them. I'm not sort of with them and felt their journey, because it felt like they started their journey and then the journey got paused because Doctor Who came in and completed it for them. Bloomin' Doctor Who. The cameo doesn't make sense because the Doctor's coming in, discovering about this portal in Coal Hill, and he's like, yeah, I'll leave it to you. Leave it to a bunch of kids he's met once. There's no way he knows their names. I don't know their names. The Doctor caused this situation. He dumped these aliens here next to a portal, and they were a beacon. And the Doctor learns about this and he's like, just leave it. It's fine. For pretty much no other explainable reason than, oh, this is a premise of a different show. Literally, like at the end of his cameo, he looks around and is like, wait a minute, this isn't my show. You know, it would have made much more sense if the Doctor had stashed these aliens at Coal Hill, because he'd be like, this is the safest, most out-of-the-way place. And then, turns out there's a portal there, and the aliens come through. Womp womp. And then they would have no way to contact the Doctor, so that they're trapped in the most dangerous place they could have been, because the Doctor assumed it would be the safest place. And then the Doctor never comes back, because in his mind it's like, that's sorted. That would be plausible, and that would be, you know, amusingly ironic. Apart from all its like bad pacing, bad plotting, bad dialogue, jumbled logic, just bad everything. It was just all set up, which is a terrible way to do episode 1. Episode 1 should be an adventure in its own right that promises more. You know, there's sort of, it's its own thing, but you can see the potential for the future stories to grow from it, and it just didn't. All this setup for things that might be interesting, but because it never bothered to make you care, you don't care to find out. It poses all these questions, but you haven't built the foundation of audience empathy and engagement, which is what makes you care about the answers. I'm not going to care about the answer to a question just because you asked the question. I should be being thrown into this developed world and want to explore it, basically. But, there's no foundation, which is what episode 1 needs to be. It needs to be the foundation, not setup. Foundation on which the other stuff builds or grows, or, what metaphor do you want to use? Class, episode 1? I don't know what it was called. I don't know anything about the show, and I've watched an episode of it. Episode 1 was very hard to watch. It felt like a task, and so I will not be coming back, I don't think, because it did nothing for me. Thank you for listening to this. I hope you somehow enjoyed my rambling thoughts. I'll see you next time. Peace out, my hot dogs, and stay classy. Ay.